Meet Helen, a 72-year-old who has always put others first. She often feels overlooked in her relationships, wondering if she's asking too little of those around her. These moments of doubt led her to realize the importance of recognizing her worth and seeking balance. Today, Helen's story will help you identify when you're settling for less than you deserve and show you how to embrace healthier, more fulfilling connections. Let's explore practical steps to create relationships built on mutual respect and care. 1. Helen often found herself saying yes to every favor, even when she didn't have the energy or time. One day, a neighbor asked her to watch their dog for a weekend. Although Helen already had plans, she agreed, worried that saying no would seem unkind. That weekend, she missed out on a gathering with friends, leaving her feeling frustrated and unappreciated. Reflecting on this, Helen realized she needed to set boundaries to protect her time and well-being. If you find yourself in similar situations, start by pausing before agreeing to requests. Take a moment to consider whether it aligns with your needs and capacity. Practice polite but firm responses like, "I'd love to help, but I have other commitments." Remember, saying no isn't selfish. It's an act of self-care. Helen discovered that setting boundaries not only reduced her stress, but also helped her feel more in control of her time. She realized that true friends would respect her limits, and this small shift empowered her to prioritize herself without guilt. 2. Helen also began noticing how little appreciation she received in some relationships. A close friend often asked her for advice, but rarely offered support in return. One afternoon, after spending an hour on the phone listening to her friend's struggles, Helen realized she couldn't remember the last time this person asked how she was doing. It hurt to feel overlooked, but it was a wake-up call. She decided to address the imbalance directly by sharing how she felt. If this resonates, start by assessing your relationships. Are they one-sided, or do they feel balanced? When addressing an issue, use I statements to express your feelings without blaming the other person. For example, "I feel unappreciated when our conversations only focus on your concerns." This opens the door to constructive dialogue. To Helen's relief, her honesty led to a positive conversation. Her friend hadn't realized how her actions came across and was eager to make changes. This experience showed Helen that advocating for herself could lead to stronger, healthier relationships. 3. Helen's journey also revealed how much she struggled to value her own needs. She often ignored her desires to accommodate others, thinking it was the kind thing to do. One evening, while planning a dinner with family, Helen chose a restaurant she didn't enjoy because she thought it would please everyone else. The evening left her feeling invisible, and she knew something had to change. If you're in the habit of putting others first, try small steps to prioritize your preferences. The next time you make plans, suggest an activity or location you truly enjoy. It's okay to express what makes you happy. You deserve to have your voice heard. When Helen started asserting her preferences, she was surprised by how often others were happy to accommodate her. She realized that her loved ones valued her happiness as much as she valued theirs. This newfound balance brought her a sense of validation and joy. Helen's early steps toward recognizing her worth and setting boundaries were transformative. By acknowledging her needs, she began to shift the dynamics in her relationships, creating space for more balance and mutual respect. These small yet powerful changes became the foundation for a more fulfilling and empowering chapter of her life. 4. Helen started noticing that she often felt unsupported in her relationships, especially during tough times. When she mentioned her health concerns to a close friend, the response was brief and dismissive. "Oh, I'm sure it's nothing to worry about." Helen felt invalidated and hesitant to share her struggles again. This experience left her questioning whether her relationships were truly serving her emotional needs. She realized she needed to surround herself with people who listened and cared deeply. If you face similar moments, start by identifying relationships that leave you feeling unheard or unsupported. When someone brushes off your concerns, gently express how you feel. Say something like, "I value our conversations, but it would mean a lot if we could talk more about how I've been feeling." You might also seek connections with people who naturally offer a safe, empathetic space. Helen's decision to share her feelings with her friend led to a more meaningful conversation. To her surprise, her friend admitted she hadn't realized how dismissive she sounded and wanted to be more present for Helen in the future. This reinforced Helen's belief that speaking up could strengthen bonds rather than strain them. 5. Helen also started reflecting on how her efforts in relationships weren't always reciprocated. She frequently reached out, planned visits, and checked in, but rarely received the same energy in return. One day, after sending multiple unacknowledged messages to a friend, Helen decided to step back and observe. She stopped initiating contact to see if the friend would notice or reach out. Weeks passed without a response, confirming that the effort in their friendship was one-sided. If you find yourself always being the one to initiate, consider taking a step back. Observe who reaches out to you without prompting. This isn't about creating distance, but about recognizing patterns. True relationships are balanced and should involve mutual effort. It might also be worth starting a conversation about how you feel, using phrases like, "I value our friendship, but I've noticed I'm often the one to initiate. How can we make this feel more balanced?" Helen's experience helped her reassess which relationships brought her joy and which left her feeling drained. While she didn't end her friendship, she decided to focus more energy on reciprocal connections. This shift made her feel lighter and reminded her that she deserved relationships based on mutual care. 6. One of the most eye-opening moments for Helen came when she realized she wasn't advocating for her needs in group dynamics. During family gatherings, she often felt her voice was drowned out or her opinions overlooked. One evening, while discussing holiday plans, she suggested a smaller, more intimate celebration. Her idea was quickly dismissed, and Helen felt frustrated. This time, however, she decided to speak up, calmly explaining why a smaller gathering would be more meaningful for her. If you've experienced similar frustrations, start by recognizing moments when your voice isn't being heard. Practice expressing your ideas with confidence, even in group settings. Use phrases like, "I'd like to share my thoughts on this," or "It's important to me that we consider another perspective." By framing your input as valuable, you encourage others to listen more attentively. Helen's decision to assert herself during the family discussion led to a compromise that made everyone happy. For the first time in years, she felt her ideas were respected and valued. This experience showed her that standing up for herself didn't disrupt relationships. It strengthened them by fostering understanding. As Helen continued to navigate these challenges, she grew more confident in her ability to recognize and address imbalances. Each step reinforced the idea that she deserved relationships rooted in respect, care, and mutual effort. Her journey became a testament to the power of self-advocacy and intentional connection. 7. Helen realized she often ignored her instincts when something felt off in her relationships. One evening, after a conversation with a friend who constantly criticized her choices, Helen felt uneasy but brushed it aside. She convinced herself it wasn't worth addressing, even though the comments lingered in her mind for days. Eventually, she recognized that this pattern of dismissing her feelings was contributing to her dissatisfaction. Helen decided it was time to trust her intuition and address situations that made her uncomfortable. If you've experienced moments where your gut tells you something isn't right, start paying closer attention to those feelings. Reflect on specific situations where you felt uneasy and ask yourself why. Practice responding to these moments by calmly addressing them, saying something like, "I felt hurt when you said that, and I'd like to talk about it." Trusting your instincts is an important step toward advocating for yourself and building healthier dynamics. Helen's decision to express her concerns with her friend was difficult, but rewarding. The conversation helped her understand the root of the criticism, and they were able to work through it together. Helen felt empowered knowing she had honored her feelings, strengthening both her confidence and the relationship. 8. Helen also discovered that some of her relationships were built on convenience rather than genuine connection. For example, a neighbor often asked her for help with errands, but rarely took the time to ask about Helen's well-being. One day, after returning from yet another favor, Helen realized she felt more like an unpaid helper than a friend. This prompted her to evaluate the relationships in her life and identify which ones were meaningful versus one-sided. If you feel like certain relationships lack depth, take a step back to evaluate their purpose. Ask yourself if these connections bring you joy, or if they leave you feeling unfulfilled. It's okay to distance yourself from relationships that don't serve you and invest more energy into ones that do. Seek out people who value your company for who you are, not just what you can provide. Helen's decision to prioritize meaningful connections transformed her social life. She focused on spending time with people who truly cared for her, and the relationships she nurtured became sources of genuine happiness. Letting go of relationships that drained her was a liberating experience, one that allowed her to make room for more fulfilling connections. 9. Helen often found herself accommodating others' schedules and needs, even when it disrupted her own plans. For instance, a friend frequently rescheduled their coffee dates last minute, leaving Helen feeling undervalued. After one too many canceled plans, Helen decided it was time to assert her own boundaries and communicate her expectations clearly. She told her friend that her time was important and asked for more consideration when making plans. If you're in a similar situation, practice setting clear boundaries around your time. Let people know that you value punctuality and reliability in relationships. If someone repeatedly cancels or reschedules, address it calmly by saying, "I'd appreciate it if we could stick to our plans, as I plan my day around them." Clear communication can help establish mutual respect. Helen's newfound assertiveness led to positive changes in her friendships. Her friend apologized for being inconsiderate and made a genuine effort to keep plans moving forward. Helen learned that setting boundaries didn't damage her relationships. It enhanced them by fostering mutual respect and understanding. Helen's ability to listen to her instincts, prioritize meaningful connections, and set boundaries brought a sense of control and fulfillment to her relationships. She began to see her time, energy, and emotions as valuable, and this shift empowered her to create stronger, healthier dynamics with the people who mattered most. 10. Helen realized that she often avoided difficult conversations to keep the peace, even when something was bothering her. One such instance occurred during a phone call with her brother, who made a dismissive comment about her decision to live independently. Helen felt hurt, but didn't address it, fearing the conversation would turn into an argument. However, the unresolved feelings lingered, creating tension in their relationship. Helen decided it was time to address these situations instead of avoiding them, knowing that open communication could lead to greater understanding. If you struggle with similar challenges, start small. When something feels off, calmly express your feelings using I statements to avoid sounding accusatory. For example, say, "I felt hurt when you said that, and I'd like to share why it upset me." This approach allows for honest dialogue while minimizing defensiveness. Practice these conversations with a trusted friend or write down your thoughts beforehand to feel more prepared. When Helen finally addressed her brother's comment, The conversation turned out better than she had anticipated. He apologized, explaining that he hadn't meant to hurt her feelings, and they were able to move forward. Helen learned that addressing issues head-on often strengthened her relationships rather than damaging them. 11. Helen often noticed herself minimizing her achievements or dismissing compliments, a habit that made her feel undervalued even in her closest relationships. One day, after a friend complimented her on hosting a lovely dinner, Helen replied, "Oh, it was nothing." Later, she realized how frequently she downplayed her efforts and contributions. Determined to change, Helen started practicing a simple shift, accepting compliments with gratitude instead of deflection. If you find it hard to accept praise, start by acknowledging the compliment with a sincere thank you. Avoid following it up with self-deprecating remarks. Additionally, remind yourself of the effort and care you put into the things you do. It's okay to take pride in your achievements. For Helen, this small adjustment made a big difference. By allowing herself to accept recognition, she felt more confident and appreciated in her relationships. It also encouraged her to celebrate others' achievements, creating a more supportive and positive dynamic in her social circle. 12. Helen began to recognize that her emotional energy was finite, and spreading herself too thin left her feeling depleted. She often agreed to attend multiple events in one week, or overcommitted to helping friends, only to feel exhausted and resentful afterward. One weekend, after back-to-back gatherings, Helen decided she needed to be more intentional with her time and energy. She started prioritizing activities and relationships that truly mattered to her, allowing herself to say no when necessary. If you're feeling similarly overwhelmed, start by creating a list of priorities. Focus on the activities and people that bring you the most joy and fulfillment. It's okay to decline invitations or take breaks when you need them. Communicate your boundaries respectfully, saying something like, "I'd love to join, but I need some downtime to recharge." Remember, protecting your energy allows you to show up more fully in the relationships that matter most. As Helen began setting these boundaries, she noticed a significant improvement in her overall well-being. She felt more present and engaged during the activities she chose to participate in, and the people in her life respected her need for balance. This intentional approach helped her create a more sustainable and fulfilling social life. Helen's willingness to address tough conversations, accept recognition, and protect her energy led to profound growth in her relationships. Each step brought her closer to creating dynamics that were both empowering and deeply rewarding. These changes reminded her that valuing herself was the key to fostering meaningful connections with others. 13. Helen realized that one of the most important aspects of her relationships was knowing when to let go of toxic dynamics. She had a longtime friend who often made her feel small with backhanded compliments and dismissive remarks. For years, Helen excused the behavior, telling herself that the good moments outweighed the bad. But as she grew more confident in her self-worth, she began to see how this friendship drained her energy. One day, after another dismissive comment, Helen decided it was time to step back and create distance. If you found yourself in a similar situation, start by assessing whether the relationship consistently brings more harm than joy. Ask yourself how you feel after spending time with this person. Do you feel uplifted or drained? If the answer is the latter, it might be time to create boundaries, or in some cases, let go entirely. Begin with small steps, such as reducing contact or politely declining invitations, to reclaim your energy and peace. Helen felt lighter after making this decision. While it wasn't easy, she learned that walking away from unhealthy relationships made room for positive and nurturing ones. This shift helped her prioritize connections that truly supported her growth and well-being. 14. Helen also found that embracing gratitude transformed her perspective on relationships. One evening, while reflecting on her day, she realized how often she overlooked the small gestures of kindness from others, like a neighbor bringing her fresh vegetables or a friend calling to check in. To remind herself of the good in her life, Helen started keeping a gratitude journal, jotting down moments that brought her joy and connection. If you want to cultivate a similar sense of gratitude, consider starting a journal where you write down one or two things you're thankful for each day. These can be as simple as a kind word, a shared laugh, or even a peaceful moment alone. Expressing gratitude directly to others can also strengthen relationships. Try sending a heartfelt note or expressing appreciation during a conversation. For Helen, this practice became a daily reminder of the love and support in her life. She noticed how her relationships grew stronger when she made an effort to acknowledge the positive moments. Gratitude shifted her focus from what was missing to what she had, creating a greater sense of fulfillment. 15. Finally, Helen realized that sustaining meaningful relationships required effort and intention. It wasn't enough to create connections. She needed to nurture them consistently. One day, she decided to host a small gathering for her closest friends, something she hadn't done in years. She planned a simple lunch and took the time to write personal notes for each guest, thanking them for their friendship. The gathering was a success, filled with laughter and heartfelt conversations, and it reminded Helen of the joy that comes from investing in her relationships. If you want to strengthen your connections, consider setting aside time to reach out to loved ones regularly. Whether it's a weekly phone call, a monthly coffee date, or even a handwritten letter, small gestures can go a long way in showing you care. Make an effort to celebrate milestones, remember important dates, and be present during conversations. Helen found that these intentional actions brought her closer to the people she cherished. The bonds she nurtured became deeper and more meaningful, and she felt a renewed sense of purpose in her social life. These efforts not only enriched her relationships, but also gave her a sense of pride and joy in knowing she was creating a life filled with love and connection. Helen's journey was a testament to the power of recognizing her worth and embracing intentional actions. By letting go of toxic dynamics, cultivating gratitude, and investing in her relationships, she created a life that was more balanced, fulfilling, and joyful. Her story serves as a reminder that it's never too late to take control of your relationships and build the connections you deserve. Helen's transformation shows the incredible power of self-worth and intentional action. Once feeling overlooked and undervalued, she built a life filled with balance, respect, and meaningful connections. Now it's your turn. Take one small step today to honor your needs and strengthen your relationships. You deserve this joy.